Hey guys, I was reading through Hebrews this morning and was just really impacted in the way I think about Jesus. At least today, hopefully it carries out into the rest of my life. But I think normally when I think about Jesus, the thought that comes into my mind is of this guy who comes to earth and does some really cool things, heals people, does miracles, and then he dies on the cross for my sins. And so because of that, I'm saved, and I have new life. And I think that's really true of what Jesus does. But this verse in Hebrews 1:3, just added a lot of depth to that. It says, "The Son shows the glory of God. He is a perfect copy of God's nature, and he holds everything together by his powerful command." Actually, in another place, Colossians, it says, "For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together." I guess that's like an element of who Jesus is that I'm not normally thinking of. Everything was created through him and for him. This world is for him. We are for him. And in fact, the images that came to mind were, one of the images that came to mind was of Jenga. And I was just thinking, you're building this thing up and everything's resting on top of a few blocks. And Jesus is sort of that block that if you took him out, everything would just crumble to pieces. And another way that sort of image that came into my mind was the idea of Jesus as sort of this figure that is just holding up the universe and everything in his hands and on his shoulders, and just that's him. He supports and sustains all of it. But as I was thinking a little bit more, neither of those images come even close to doing justice to how Jesus sustains this universe. In another place, it says, "For in him we live and move and have our being." And I think that does a better job of explaining what's going on. Our lives, not just the things around us, are sustained and can only move and even exist because of him, because of Jesus. And that's just a profound statement. But even more profound is what it says right after that in Hebrews 1:3. So he just gets on saying, "And he holds everything together by his powerful command." But then the next sentence is, "The Son made people clean from their sins." And even to have two sentences like that right next to each other is just crazy. I mean, you have this picture of God behind everything, Jesus behind everything, the only reason anything even moves or exists. Yet he came to this earth and died for us so that we could have an even fuller life. I guess that just really rattled me, and really made me think about the way I'm living and the way I'm thinking. The person writing Hebrews eventually comes to the conclusion that because of this awesome gift that this God who sustains all things has given us, the proper response is to draw near to God with a sincere heart. I think that's something that I need to do a little better in my day. I'm not thinking about God in my thoughts and my thought processes in every action I have. Dallas Willard talks about God and says something really cool. He says, "Jesus Christ, in everything he did, assumed God behind it." And I think that's ultimately what the writer of Hebrews is telling us, as asking us to respond to this awesome thing. And then he says one other thing. He says, this is the response we should have. "Let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds." Guys, I don't think there's any other response you should be having to a God who did this for you. For a man, Jesus Christ, who is behind all things and sustains all things. So I would just encourage you guys, let every thought be his. It's his already, but just acknowledge it and live like that's the truth.